Okay, hello Tom. Thanks for your answer. I'm going to mark this live. The question, as you can see, is in front of you there. In what ways did the Nazi persecution of the Jews change in the years 1938 to 45? It was worth 12 marks and it was from the January 2013 paper. At the end of the podcast, we're going to revisit this screen. I'm not going to look at it just now, but that's the mark scheme. So you can see it was marked in 3 levels, and then very useful, I put an extract from the examiner's report that talks about how candidates who attempted that question in 2013 did and what the strengths and weaknesses of their answers were. But let's just get straight into your own answer. Okay, so here it is. Remember always, and you're not marked on it, but it's essential, before you begin an answer, always just make sure you highlight on the keywords. So I would just highlight that it's about change. That should send immediate signals into your head. It's about that you've got to show the examiner you understand what change is about. So try to incorporate sort of keywords about change in your answers, such as continuity, gradual change, rapid change, and that really good one to use, turning point. Okay. In fact, you could use that phrase turning point in your introduction. We'll have a look at that in a second. And obviously, focusing on the dates. It's 1938 to 45. So many candidates can lose marks because they don't know the dates well enough and they therefore bring irrelevant material into the answer. So if we zoom in then on your answer itself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 2 different coloured pens for marking. I'm going to use green to highlight strengths and blue to point out just areas that could have been improved. So your introduction, and remember what I said, it's about focusing in on the dates. Show that very quickly in your answer. So well done, you've done that during the years 1938 to 45. The treatment of Jews changed. The Nazi Party brainwashes the German nation to believe in Jews are evil. I'm just reading this out loud, but in fact they were just scapegoats. That's a nice term there. You've a good relevant term. The eventual actions taken were too late. The Holocaust had started. Okay, so you've identified the fact that the Holocaust started during this period. Okay, introduction. The way in which I would have strengthened that is think of the key building blocks. 1938, Kristallnacht. You're going to go through the invasion of Poland, 1939. You'll want to talk about the creation of Polish ghettos, the invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941, Einsatzgruppen, terror squads, and of course the death camps. 1942 to 45. It's good in your introduction just to sort of like identify a little bit of knowledge of some of those key facts that are going to appear in your answer. I would have put that word turning point in your answer somewhere because 1938 was that turning point. It was the beginning of violence against the Jews, and of course it got worse and worse. Another good word which you can use when talking about change is accelerate. So the violence accelerated during World War II. Okay, ways in which the answer could have improved. Just a spelling mistake there. Take that E out of treatment. The Nazi Party, your capitalisation is a small b. Okay, that's important. And always write in the past tense. The Nazi Party brainwashed the German nation into believing Jews are evil. And again, it's a small b there, comma. But in fact, they were just scapegoats. Okay, but it's a reasonable start. That's good. Then let's move in. Now remember, with your immediately I can see you've paragraphed it. That's great. Okay, it shows you're organising your ideas. And I always look carefully at the opening sentences, what I call the topic sentences, to see if it makes clear what the paragraph is about. So before 1938, German Jews were treated. Sorry, I changed the colour there. Before because that's a strength. Before 1938, German Jews were treated as second-class citizens. Excellent. Okay, makes it very clear that you're kind of starting in 1938. What was the situation like? But hated a little by political groups, including the German People's Workers' Club. Why not just say, but were hated by the Nazi Party? That I think you're getting distracted by an irrelevance there. I think you mean the Nazi Party, who were the ruling group. Jews were separated. Common spelling mistake that. separated from non-Jews, and you've managed to spell it correctly there. Notice, okay, so watch out for that. And again, punctuation, just these little things. There's no semicolon there, e.g. separate swimming pools. When the Nuremberg rules passed, that should be the Nuremberg laws. When you talk about anything in history, always, if you can, put the date in. That was September 1935. Okay, passed. There's German citizen got taken away for bidding them as 2Ds there to marry and then have sex with non-Jewish Germans. So that's good. You mentioned the Nuremberg laws. You've included information about the citizen taken away, the marriage laws. Good. Okay, and then in 1938 the policy became more extreme. That's excellent. Okay, the policy became more extreme. So you're talking about change. I mean, you could say in 1938 the policy changed, comma, it became more extreme. And if you want to be really, really clever, a word that examiners love is it became radicalised. Okay, it means exactly the same thing. It means more extreme. That's a good one for you to use. With organised violence, that's excellent, okay, towards the Jews. You got the precise date there, that's good. Okay, remember the point I mentioned about Nuremberg laws earlier. Hundreds of SA soldiers attacked Jewish businesses and synagogues. Underlining is good. Straight underlining is good, by the way. Squiggly underlining is where I point out errors. Killing 91 Jews and placing thousands of Jews in concentration camps. Following this, many Jews emigrated. Okay, it's good. So your answer started with an excellent sort of summary of what Jewish policy was like in 1938. As I said, it's just this bit here that was a weakness. Okay, it's the strength of that section there, but the rest of it is very, very good. Okay, so let's move on and see where we go. Okay. Again, really good topic sentence there. With the outbreak of World War II, so I can clearly see where you're going. Okay, the number of Jews under Nazi control increased. Violence against Jews hit new high levels. Good. So you're very much sort of like focusing in on change. Again, I would just simply say try to use that word change there. It's just flagging up to the examiner that you really are aware of it, but nevertheless it is a strong topic sentence. And I can see straight away you're developing it with good information. So you haven't just said the number of Jews under Nazi control has increased. You've given me some statistics. 3.5 million Polish Jews. Brilliant. 5 million Russian Jews were under Nazi control. Thousands died after Nazi and random acts of violence. So it's so I just changed the colour there. Small r. Again, watch your capitalisation. But again, random acts of violence. That's very good. Mass shootings of Russian Jews. Now these the Nazis who carried out the mass shootings that you mentioned there, again you can use the English word which is terror squads, okay, or you can use the German word which is even better. They were called Einsatzgruppen. Okay, that's the name of the soldiers that carried out the mass shootings inside Russia. Okay. Now, just pause at that point. In here, you missed out something which I would have, which I think is significant. You need to mention about the Jews in Poland who were put into ghettos. That's OES at the end, so it's not very clear. But you need to mention how Jews were put into the Polish Jews were ghettoized in the Polish cities. You haven't mentioned that, so you missed a piece of information that will have an impact on your marks. So make sure you bring that one in. Okay. Then in January 1942, persecution entered the final most. Again, that's very good. I like the way you've used the persecution. You've got January, and you've got that most extreme phase. Again, you could use that word radical, couldn't you? The most radical phase that I mentioned earlier. The Nazi Party took the decision to mass murder all the Jews in Europe. Now, again, just in terms of a little bit of extra information, the place where that decision was made, remember, was the Wannsee Conference, which was a place in Berlin, and it was a meeting that was held on the 20th of January 1942. You've got the date, but just that little bit of detail would be really helpful. But you're right, the decision was made to exterminate them. The Nazis built special death camps in occupied Poland. You've got the gassing facilities, make sure you get double S for gassing. and you mentioned the names of the camps Chelmno and Auschwitz. So that should be green. And again, I would just like to see the capitals, just get that correct, which murdered Jews on an industrial scale. That is really, really good using that phrase, industrial scale. So just moving into your conclusion, before 1938, persecution was focused on legal separation, turning Jews into second-class citizens. Okay, good, excellent, sort of pulling it together, legal separation. There's that spelling mistake, just make sure you get the A in separation. What changed in 1930? You've got that keyword change, really good, was the policy became more extreme. Again, you could use that word radical, with increased organised violence. Again, that's a good word for change against the Jews. Eventually Jews emigrated, but with the outbreak of World War II, they were stuck. So I just move it up a little bit. Okay, good. The policy finally moved towards the final solution, the Holocaust, the murder of 6 million innocent Jews. Again, just get your spelling correct. There's two N's in innocent. Again, conclusion. It's a good, strong conclusion. It's a good opportunity for you to just bring in some key terms like accelerate. Were those words to do with change? Policy became more extreme. 1938 was a turning point. The violence accelerated with the outbreak of World War II, reaching the Holocaust in 1942 onwards, something like that. Okay, so talk about the pace of change, which would really strengthen your answer. So there is the mark scheme. You're certainly writing more than a simple statement. Okay, so it is definitely, I think we can ignore that. The key characteristics of level 2 tends to be very much of a descriptive answer. Statements are developed. We've certainly written developed. You put in lots of relevant and accurate information, but it tends to be a sort of descriptive. Now your answer is better than that. You have put in the details, so I'm moving you definitely into a level 3, because level 3, 9 to 12 marks. The answer shows understanding of the focus of the question. You do, because you talk about change. You explain the different nature of escalation. Again, you do that. Okay, you talk about how things changed. Part of that is because it's a well-organised response. E.g., explains how Nazi policy changed between 1938 and 1945 as a result of Kristallnacht, the start of the Second World War. The Nazis attempted to find final solutions to the Jewish problem. Again, you've done all of those. Reserve top of level for coverage of date range or links shown. I would probably give you 11 for this, to be honest. It's definitely a well-focused response. You really do talk about change. You cover the full range of the dates. Why not the full marks? Simply because you miss out that, firstly, you miss out the reference to the ghettos, the creation of the ghettos. You don't specifically mention the terror squads, the Einsatzgruppen. Okay, those are just little details, but it's just strengthening the details, and you don't mention the Wannsee conference. You allude to it, but just putting in those three key terms would have really strengthened it. For this question, you don't get bonus marks for quality of written communication, but just I've highlighted your use of capitals. I've highlighted some spelling mistakes. Make sure you pick up on those, because when you do the final question, 5B or 6B, of course, you do get the additional marks for quality of written communication. Okay, hopefully that was useful to you. Make sure you now basically go to your own answer and self-evaluate, self-mark it. Thank you.